Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sam Metcalfe. I'm the Midlands editor at thebusinessdesk.com, and welcome to the innovation pillar of Invest Midlands. Now, long-term economic growth and achieving the UK's ambition of levelling up will largely rest on innovation. Key sectors such as the life sciences and electric vehicles are already creating thousands of jobs a year across the Midlands, while digitalisation and decarbonisation are forecast to transform our economy. Utilising the expertise in world-class universities and research-intensive global companies based in the Midlands is at the heart of how we can create a genuinely widespread business culture of innovation. Before we start our panel discussions today, I'm going to invite the CEO of Millennium, Abbie Vlahakis, to the stage, who's going to talk on how her organisation is helping businesses innovate. Good afternoon, Abbie.
Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm fine. Are you?
Yes,
For those who weren't there last week, Millennium hosted our Invest Midlands dinner. It was a fantastic venue. I'd urge anyone looking for a venue in Birmingham for a business event to go along there. Okay, Abbie, I'm going to be quiet now, and I'll leave the stage and let you do your talk.
That's great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying the conference. As Sam said, I'm Abbie Vlahakis. I'm CEO of Millennium, which is a commercial landlord and charity based in Birmingham. I'm here today to kick off the session on innovation in Midlands. And I guess the question that's been asked of us all is, how do we capitalise on the amazing resources we have here in our region? We have first-class universities and global companies. And how do we use those to create not only a business culture of innovation, but also how do we inspire and support the next generation of innovators in our region? So I know there's some great speakers on innovation this afternoon, and I have no doubt that there's going to be some great ideas shared. However, I want to take this session, my opportunity, to just set the scene, starting on the journey that we've been on as a region and ending with where we're going, and hopefully along the way reminding you all of everything that is great about our region. So if we rewind back to the 18th and 19th centuries, the Industrial Revolution saw the move from an economy that was relying on agriculture to one dominated by industry and machine manufacturing. And the Midlands was integral to introducing the technological changes which led to novel ways of working and living, and quite frankly, transformed society. But if we fast forward 2 centuries, those technological advances have continued here in the Midlands, arguably at a faster pace. But what's remained constant is the Midlands has been integral to those advances. And what's the result? Well, we're now home to the largest aerospace, automotive and rail clusters in the UK. And we are a region known for first-class talent in those industries. But I guess, how does the Midlands fare when it comes to new technologies? When you look at it, we're one of the largest hubs for science and innovation within the UK. We are home to several clusters of highly productive STEM industries. And STEM is science, technology, engineering, and maths. And those careers, those subjects, innovation is at its core. And these industries are seen to be key to driving the future growth of innovation in the UK. When I talk about these industries, I'm talking about advanced manufacturing and engineering. And here in our region, we have Alstom, JLR, Rolls-Royce. There's the next generation transport industries. There's medtech. And if you look at Binding site here in Birmingham, there's energy and low carbon industries, digital technologies and data, such as Vanti and Silicon Canal. And then there's systems integration. As well as that, we're also home to some world-class innovation assets. We have 25 science, innovation and technology parks and centres, 25 universities, 54 further education colleges, 8 enterprise zones, all in our region, which is fantastic. We're also leaders in technology that will connect people like never before. So the West Midlands is the UK's first multi-city 5G testbed, and that's going to pave the way for the future rollout of 5G across the country. It's going to connect people and businesses like never before. Now, this is going to have amazing consequences for the UK, but actually think about it in terms of the worldwide impact. what it's going to have on remote villages where connectivity is really going to transform communities for the better. And we're also leading ways in which we're creating solutions which are vital to protecting our planet, which is so important. Now, I don't know if you know, but as a region, we have more patents for low carbon transport than anywhere else in Europe, not even the UK, but Europe. And the region is a global centre for future transport systems and supply chain firms. And if that's not enough, when you look at all these facts, it's amazing. We're also home to the largest regional tech cluster in the UK, with 13,900 digital and tech businesses employing 74,000 highly qualified employees. Last year, Birmingham had more than 18,500 startups, which is more than any other regional city. We're also home to over 113 gaming companies, which is a real fast growing industry. And we have Silicon Spa in our region. And then on the periphery, we're fast becoming the largest hub for grassroots esports in the UK. And with one of the youngest populations, universities like Warwick and Staffordshire are really investing heavily in esports. So really, with all that, we have so much to be proud of. Our history is rich in innovation, and all the evidence points to a region continuing to be a birthplace of world-class innovation. However, to deliver world-class innovation, we need everything to be in equilibrium. And an area where we could potentially fall short if we don't act now is securing our future workforce. After all, if you rewind to 19th century Midlands, our industrialists invested heavily in securing a pipeline of employees. In fact, you haven't got to look far from where I am here, Millennium Point. The Cadbury family, they built communities such as Bourneville Village. That was just one of their ways in which they were securing several generations of employees. However, unlike that period, which arguably is a period where workers were de-skilled by the introduction of machinery, the situation today is very different, and our employees need to be highly skilled. Therefore, as a region, we need to invest in the education of our young people to secure our future workforce. Now, inspiring and supporting the next generation of innovators and STEM leaders is why the Millennium Point charity exists. So as CEO of Millennium Point, I'm driven to ensure that the young people of today leave education with the skills for the careers of the future, which will not only support the Midlands to become a region of world-beating innovators, but will also improve social mobility for those young people and change lives. And that's really incredibly important. So what does the current talent pool look like? So what we've witnessed over recent years is with rapid growth in new technologies and industries comes a burgeoning demand for highly skilled workers to fulfill those roles. Failure to address this early enough has created what we term today as the STEM skills gap, and that exists today. According to an organisation called STEM Learning, the UK already has a shortfall of over 170,000 skilled workers in STEM industries. There's an average of 10 unfulfilled roles per business in the UK, and the cost to the employers in the UK is approximately 1.5 billion a year for not having a talent pool to pull upon. It's predicted that 65% of our children today will work in jobs that currently do not exist. So when you consider all of the above factors and consider our region, without positive actions, the current skill gap will only widen. And with that, the Midlands' potential for growth and innovation could begin to slow down. Now, a major factor of the skills gap comes from a reluctance by young people to pursue a STEM education and ultimately a career. What we witness through our work at Millennium Point are a number of contributing factors. There's flaws in our education system to keep up with the skills required by the changing workplace. This is accompanied by a lack of resources and funding, leaving schools without the necessary equipment or teaching staff. There's also a lack of understanding among the young people and their parents and carers on the STEM opportunities that are available and the lucrative salaries that come with those careers. And something which was highlighted in the pandemic, which already existed but had the light shone on it, was something digital poverty. Now, digital poverty sees children in our region without any form of device, laptop, or any internet connection, which is leaving these young people feeling excluded from those careers of the future, which is a tragedy. So how can we change that narrative? This problem is not unique to our region, but with the resources and investment we have here in the Midlands, we can become the region that flips that narrative and leads the way into closing that skills gap and unlocking the innovative future we have so close in our grasp. The problem is not exclusively that of the child, the teacher, the employer, the parent, or the government. Therefore, it's not going to be solved by any one party. However, through my experience as CEO of a STEM charity, we work with more than 70 schools, STEM industries and not-for-profits in the region. I can identify a few things that we can do, and Millennium Point is really pushing this as we speak. So as business and business leaders, we need to invest and support in our education system. The children of today are our innovators of tomorrow, but they only get there with our input, whether it's through work experience, workshops, away days, or simply providing resources for teachers. Don't wait to be asked by a school for support, but approach them. Through my work, I'm aware of a number of companies, and global companies at that have already identified that they need to grow their own talent, and they are moving to the Midlands to make that happen, which is fantastic. As parents and guardians, embrace STEM and understand that the go-to careers are changing. Instead of law and accounting, the careers of the future are in STEM. They're creative, they're morally rewarding because they're about solving world problems, and they're extremely lucrative. So encourage your child's curiosity and nurture their interests. As people, we need to create safe learning environments which are inclusive to all. Women account for just 24% of the core STEM workforce. In engineering, that figure drops to 17%. And according to a recent report by WISE, women occupy just 16% of all tech roles. This figure is even less for Black and Hispanic women at 3% and Asian women just 5%. Finally, we need to educate and communicate with each other. Innovation comes from collaborative and communicative behaviour. Too many businesses and educators work in isolation, not realising that there's an abundance of support to be given and traded. Organisations like Millennium Point, like STEM Learning, Midlands Engine, and even conferences like today, Invest Midlands, all operate to support STEM and innovation, and there are hundreds more. You just need to engage with them. So in conclusion, there's a long road ahead of us, but the future is really bright and we have so much to be so proud of here. The Midlands has the power to lead in science and innovation, not just in the UK, but on the national and the international stage. We can only get there, however, by working together to share ideas and grow our own talent. So I will leave you with a couple of questions that I want you to think about. How will you do your bit to cement the Midlands as the region synonymous with innovation? And how will you inspire the innovators of tomorrow? Thank you.
Thank you, Abbie. Really inspiring stuff there, and food for thought, I'm sure. Thank you for your input, and
thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, enjoy the conference, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, our first session in the innovation pillar is called A Sustainable Future. Now, the drive towards net zero is now a serious ambition of many towns and cities across the Midlands. We're going to ask our panel what role businesses in the region have to play to ensure sustainability isn't just the latest marketing buzzword. So if I can ask the panel to join the stage now, please. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Sam.
Hello. I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself. So on my screen, Charmaine, you're first.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good to see you virtually. I'm Charmaine Morell, Head of Sustainability at Nottingham Trent University. Do you want me to say a bit about myself, Sam?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I work with the university leaders and across the NTU community to develop strategy and policy. I'm the NTU lead for net zero carbon by 2040. We'll probably come on to talking about some of the targets around that. I'm really passionate about embedding sustainability in everything we do at Nottingham Trent University. And with my team, we act as pathfinders to help others find that way to advise and support, particularly around carbon reduction. And this includes our supply chain, which is the main reason that I'm delighted to be here today.
Thanks, Charmaine. Lance.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to be here. I'm Lance Hill from 8 Days a Week Print Solutions. I'm the managing director and majority owner of the business. We're a small digital print business based in Nottingham. From a personal perspective, I've been in the printing industry for 32 years. So changing the industry over the years and how we are now moving to a much more sustainable future in print.
Thanks, Lance. Andy.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Andy Williams. I'm Director of Business, Investment and Culture for Coventry City Council. I look after all our economic development work, our business investment work for the city, as well as our culture and destination services, and more recently, our climate change and sustainability agenda as well.
Thanks, Andy. Becky.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Becky Valentine, co-owner of Spenbeck, which is a second-generation property development and commercial lettings company in Nottingham's Lace Market. I lead on our sustainability, wellbeing and building health programme, supporting our tenants and other companies to achieve their sustainability and building health targets, with particular focus commercially on listed buildings.
Thanks, Becky. And Natalie, please.
Thanks, Sam, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Natalie Gasson-McKinley. I am the Development Manager for the Federation of Small Businesses in Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. And that means I have around 5,500 of our members within the region that I work with in terms of their growth ambitions, their sustainability ambitions, as well as working with a number of partners in the region, such as colleges, universities, members of parliament and local councils.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, let's kick off. I've got a lot to fit in. I'm going to ask the business owners in a second, and Andy, you after that, what you're doing in Coventry. But Charmaine and Natalie, Charmaine first, please. Can you tell me why you think sustainability is so important to businesses in the Midlands?
I think it's really important because it really helps a business future-proof itself. We're all aware that there's a changing landscape around climate action, around net zero and so on, and it's difficult for businesses to know where to start. But the regulatory position's changing. We get announcements for government that there's funding for EV charging, for example, that we could take advantage of. But if a business doesn't really know how to get on board, that can be a whole minefield and difficult for them to engage. But I would say it really helps future-proof your business. The Climate Change Act came in 2008, which sets net zero carbon by 2050. So we've all got to get there. So the quicker you get on board, the more you future-proof your business. And, depending on which sector you're in and your clients, there could be that sort of demand from their shareholders. So the more you can do to help your customer, your client, again, the more future-proofed you are. And a lot of it is just resource efficiency. Carbon emissions are a sign of wastage. So if you can be more efficient in the resources you use, then that's great. But sustainability is a little bit more than just that. But there is lots of help out there. I think the SME Climate Hub recently did a survey and found out that 66% of businesses, SMEs, don't really know where to start. They want to do the right thing, but they don't know where to start. Many concerned about the funding, but that's where the likes of the universities and your local council come in. Anyway, more about that later, perhaps.
Thanks, Charmaine. Natalie, what are you hearing from your members about this?
So I completely agree with everything Charmaine's just said. It's it's the right thing to do, but also stakeholders and partners do expect that to a certain degree. So I'm seeing lots more businesses contact me to say it's part of the procurement questions that public procurement officers are asking in terms of what are your CSR policies, what are your sustainable measures, how are you working to decrease your carbon emissions. I think there's an element there as well around the sense of return on investment, and I think that's something potentially people who do understand sustainability measures really well probably don't tap into enough with particularly small businesses. So there's this sense of actually you can save money if you're more efficient running your business, and that improves the amount you're spending on fuel or recycling or waste management, then that benefits your bottom line. So there's lots of benefits. I think in terms of the businesses that I speak to in the East Midlands and across the Midlands generally, there's a sense of they don't know what they don't know. So I know we have about 460,000 small businesses across the Midlands Engine patch. And when we've done some digging at the Federation of Small Businesses, we know that only about 36% of those businesses are confident with the measures they've taken to impact sustainability. So that means the good news is there's lots of businesses that haven't actually switched over to that. So I think there's a massive opportunity there as well.
Becky and Lance, you both work in industries which I guess traditionally weren't seen as particularly sustainable, but Becky, you've really gone for this in the last year, 18 months, haven't you? Why is it so important for you?
I think there's three reasons. There's the cold hard business case, definitely that it doesn't make business sense. It's a business imperative to embed sustainability now in what we're doing. From a legislative point of view, the legislation, particularly within property and office lettings, is coming thick and fast, which is fantastic because I think the sector needs a nudge, but that is a big drive in our sector to make sure that it is embedded, and we are providing, as Charmaine was talking about, in terms of sort of ESG targets for companies and for our tenants in particular. It's hard for them to manage if we as landlords are not providing the right background for them. So that's a big imperative for us to make sure that the companies who come with us and the companies we work with have the right support from their landlord to enable them to meet their own targets. And then there's the moral one. You know, there is the argument about, have we reached tipping point already? Have we gone past it? Is there a point to this? Absolutely there is. I believe very firmly that we have, all of us, I mean, we're a micro SME. There's only 2 of us at Spenbeck, and we are doing everything we can to embed sustainability, and personally and through the company. I don't see any reason why the multinationals and everyone in between can't. It's just about how you manage that, what it looks like for you. Funding, obviously, as Charmaine touched on and we'll come back to, I'm sure, is always going to help. But I just think there's no reason why you don't go all in if you have the right support and knowledge. You know, as Natalie was just saying about raising your own awareness of what there is out there, what you can do, then there's no excuse. You can just go for it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, great stuff. And Lance, I guess this is just a must-have for your industry, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's not an option. I mean, you know, a lot of people see print as a sort of dirty, old-fashioned industry, and it absolutely isn't. You know, I mean, yes, I will defend it, but it's not an option. I mean, we're fortunate in our business. We are very much on the front foot. We're financially secure. We're well invested. We've invested in, you know, state-of-the-art technology that is far more efficient, far more environmentally friendly, less wasteful than some of the older equipment out there. But it's not optional. And as Becky said, and some of the others have said, it's about efficiency, improvements. It's about the overall business. You know, I think what a lot of business owners have got to understand is it's not just about the sustainability element. There are commercial benefits to doing it. It makes you more lean, it makes you more efficient. So ultimately, you're saving money. So it makes you a slicker, leaner business. So it's kind of a no-brainer, but it's essential as well. And again, as has been touched on already, a lot of customers and a lot of large organizations that are going out to tender insist on some of these boxes being ticked. So again, there's a business case for it, regardless of the impact it's having from a sustainability viewpoint. So, you know, it is all about, you know, the next generation as well. And also it's great to see that I think, you know, in my industry, there's a lot of strong businesses in the Midlands, and it's good to see us leading from the front and taking the front foot and being out there.
Thanks, Lance. Andy, can you tell me a little bit about the work going on in Coventry and where you see the future for sustainable cities.
Sure. I think just to echo everything that's been said already, that would mirror the feedback engagement that we've had with businesses inside of Coventry and Coventry and Warwickshire for that matter. We provide services across a wider geography as well. We now see this very much as central to what we do, not just an added grant program or investment if we happen to have the opportunity. We're trying to embed this into the core of our delivery of support for businesses as well as communities and neighbourhoods and things. So we're investing in things as a council in the areas that we can invest in, like 5G, our transport infrastructure. Coventry will be the first city to have an all-electric bus fleet by 2025. We have an ambition to build a gigafactory, which is the greenest type of factory that you could get inside of a city to help speed up that transition to electric cars. We've engaged businesses in an independently chaired climate change board for the city as well to address some of these major challenges, not to just improve individual sustainability strategies, but get our businesses actually working together with the public sector, with the universities to actually create change here, not just products that go elsewhere. And of course, improving our strategies and our action plans to try and create a framework for investment across the patch too, and ensure that our businesses can really get involved in that. And we've had for probably about the last 8 years, and we'll continue to invest, a green business program as well, where we're actually trying to support businesses in their desire to become more efficient and to deliver on some of the things that panelists have spoken about, but also to innovate as well inside of this space and remain competitive as well and grow the next talent inside of the business world. So we feel like we're doing a lot. There's a lot more to happen inside of that, but that's just a glimpse of some of those things.
Thanks, Andy. That's interesting stuff. Charmaine, I think you mentioned cash, but is there enough help? I know you've been working with Becky, haven't you? Is there enough help for businesses to begin their carbon neutral journey out there? And where do you think is the best place to start?
Yeah, I appreciate it can be daunting for any business just thinking they've got to get on board with sustainability, because it is such a patchwork quilt of all the different things you have to focus on, really, to make your business more sustainable and future-proofed. The budget wasn't quite as helpful as it could have been, but there's still some things in it. Green business rates coming in next month. Which is perhaps something that businesses could look at. But I would say that what a business really needs, it needs leadership within the business, somebody to really say, right, this is what we're going to do. Because if you're passive about it, the other priorities will just come in and get in the way. And somebody that really champions it and has it as part of their job description. So a small business wouldn't be able to have a dedicated sustainability resource. I mean, I'm fortunate at the university, I've got a large team, so we're able to do all sorts of things to make Nottingham Trent more sustainable. But appreciate SMEs don't have that. But there is lots of support out there. There's the SME Climate Hub, which I've mentioned, which is a dedicated toolkit for SMEs. I think I would urge businesses to get in touch with their local university, their local council, to see what they've got on offer. Because at Nottingham Trent, we've got a great programme called Sustainability and Enterprise, and we've supported Becky in this. And we provide free consultancy support to businesses to help them focus on carbon reduction, making them more sustainable. So the business will get their own carbon assessments, they'll understand what their carbon footprint is and know what areas to tackle. But that programme is only for Nottingham-based businesses, but there are other funded support available for businesses across the Midlands. So I would urge you to get in touch with your local council, your local university, to see what's on offer there. But yeah, there's plenty of free resources out there. I would say there's also a fair amount of greenwashing, which can be quite confusing for a newcomer to the space of sustainability. So I'd perhaps go to somewhere like your local council or your local university just to get a gauge, and don't just jump in on the first advert you see for a consultant, is what I would suggest.
Thanks, Charmaine. Lance and Becky, Charmaine mentioned that you're both very busy people. I know SME owners wear lots of hats all the time, don't they? How easy have you found it? Lance, do you want to go crack on first?
Yeah, sure. What Charmaine said there touched a few notes with me. I mean, we are now a carbon neutral business, I'm very proud to say, but the journey to get there was not straightforward. And again, as Charmaine said, when you're running a business and you're juggling a lot of balls and spinning a lot of plates, you haven't got a sustainability manager or somebody who can just, there you go, get on and do that. It just doesn't work like that. So we had to do a lot of groundwork on it. And I suppose the start point for us was we're an ISO 14001 certified business, so we've got the environmental standards there already. And I literally thought, right, okay, we need to do something. Net zero is going to come whether we like it or not. It's no point putting a head in the sand. We need to do something about this and drive the business forward. As I touched on earlier, it's about efficiency, it's about everything. So I literally Googled it, right, how do we become carbon neutral? So there wasn't anything that came to me as how to measure your footprint, nothing like that. So I literally Googled it and I found a partner, which was Carbon Neutral Britain, to help us on that journey. So, and they were fantastic, and there are others out there, of course. In fact, in the print industry, there are 2 or 3 others who specialise in it. And it was about finding the right partner for us that was the right fit for the type of business we were, going through the motions, understanding how to gather the data to actually measure your carbon footprint. And I was a little bit lucky because we'd just been through our annual assessment for 14,001, along with the other ISOs we've got. So I had a lot of that data available. So it wasn't too onerous to do that, but it could have been quite painful because it is all about gathering data. So we went through the process, and it was actually pretty straightforward with the partner. But again, we've done a little bit of work with Nottingham Trent as well. They've come in and had a look at our business as well to give, I suppose, an additional sense check, which is really useful because you do need help. I think when you're an SME, you try and do it all on your own, it's a tough gig. So I'd highly recommend finding partners out there. But I think more could be done to promote it for sure, because I think, as business owners, we're busy running the business, and it's quite easy to let this sort of thing pass you by if it's not front and centre. So for me, it's about finding the right partners to do it. And from a Nottingham viewpoint, Nottingham Trent University could be it.
Becky.
Yeah, absolutely agree with everything Lance said. And just to pick on a couple of points. The first one about partnerships, I think he's absolutely right. For us as a micro SME, if you don't partner with people, you are going to flounder completely. And there are people out there doing things better than you. They've got more knowledge, more support. And to get such limited resources and time, to have that external expert support is invaluable. We've got a whole range of support here that's almost probably quadrupled the number of people in the business, which we just simply couldn't afford to buy in. To have that all complementary through the university's SIE programme, through to support the D2N Growth Hub, Innovate UK, various other partners that we've worked with, it's absolutely crucial. I think there's potentially a mindset amongst SMEs where they have to feel that they can't do it because they're so small, and they don't know where to start. Well, echoing what's been said, I'd get help. It is all about partnerships. We're thriving because of the partnerships, the strong networks we've made within sustainability. We'd be lost without NTU support. It's absolutely fantastic and just crucial. But for me, as Lance was saying, my sort of sustainability journey started by accident, and I happened upon the Sustainable Development Goals. That really changed everything for me, and we at Spenbeck have used that as a framework, as Lance was saying, in terms of how you move forward with your sustainability. For us, we've embedded the SDG framework into everything that we do. So we reference against all 17 goals, of which partnerships, number 17, I would hold as the most important from an SME perspective. Completely agree with Charmaine as well about the funding. We're on positive mode today. Everyone can always do with more money, can't they, in anything we do? But certainly the funding is key to helping from a sustainability SME perspective. But I would also add that I think a rationalisation of advice is possibly key to really push people forward. I know the SME Climate Hub, I reference it frequently. It's a very useful tool. There are a number of potentially competing tools out there. And I think from an SME perspective, the companies I work with and I help, the word overwhelm comes up quite a bit. And I just think that we have such, was it 5.6 million SMEs at the moment, such a groundswell of goodwill and passion for sustainability within that sector. But I think maybe just rationalising how we access information and the support out there would be helpful to really drive it forward. Otherwise, it can feel, I think, particularly after COP, it was coming at you from every angle. It's like, oh, I don't quite know how to do this. Fortunately, we'd already made a start. If we hadn't, I might have felt, I don't know, I'm drowning in all this information. So I think we just need to keep that on board with all of this. But yeah, it's the partnerships and the taking it slowly and doing marginal gains is the way forward in our experience.
Takes me on very nicely. Of course you can.
Just chip in, just to sort of follow up on Becky's point there, which is, absolutely agree. It can be overwhelming. So I'd probably, if I were an SME, I would look to the people that I already trust. Who do I trust already? I'd perhaps look to my trade body, my trade association. Have they got tools? Can they recommend? I definitely would sort of look at those sort of places. And also, if you work for a large organization, if your business is focused on, a multinational, a big corporation, you're a key supplier to that, I'd get in touch with them and ask them what they recommend, what they suggest. Because, for example, at Nottingham Trent, we are aiming to be net zero carbon by 2040, but we include our supply chain emissions in that. And our supply chain accounts for over 50% of our carbon footprint. And the majority of large organisations actually leave that out. But if you're leaving out half of your footprint as a large organisation, potentially you're not being transparent, but some are. So if you're a supplier to, a large organisation, I would ask them what they're doing to support their supply chain. So one of the things that we're doing at Nottingham Trent is supporting businesses such as Ian's and Becky's. But yeah, so I'd go to those two, trade associations and your client.
Thanks, Charmaine. We're kind of talking about, that there's almost too much out there, but how can we collectively accelerate progress? Is that through the sort of a carrot approach of knowledge sharing, or, Andy, is it through regulatory change like clean air zones? What do you think's been shown to work?
I think a lot of which we've already talked upon, I think is really important. What's worked that I've seen work is definitely some form of green business network collaboration, businesses talking to one another. Often businesses don't quite know where to start, as we've already said, but actually being able to talk to others, because often it's not about being competitive with each other, it's about being sustainable and implementing things inside of their own businesses. And generally a lot of the SMEs inside of the community that we work with want to support one another as best they can. So I wouldn't underestimate the value of that conversation, where people will not only share stories, but they'll share where the best practices come from, where the best support has come from, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And that trust mechanism, I think, is really important. I do think that we can do more publicly, locally, regionally and nationally, and more needs to be done, whether it's through tax incentives or additional funding mechanisms to kickstart and stimulate stuff. I think more work needs to be done in that space, but I think it needs to be combined with innovation as well. We're taking a lot of our businesses that have sustainability aims to actually pursue innovation funding to actually shape and address some of those challenges if we can't find pure green sustainable funding inside of that. I think talking to the local authority cannot be underestimated inside of that. We have the opportunity, I have the opportunity this year to bid for different funding programs, to get colleagues to write different funding programs and to secure investment. Well, the only way to make those things successful is to know exactly what those businesses want and need. We work very closely with our FSB colleagues here, similar to Natalie in the Nottingham area, but here in Coventry and Warwickshire. And we rely on their feedback very heavily so that we can target some of those interventions. We've seen great success in people contacting the growth hubs and the chambers of commerce and actually being fairly proactive in side of this. I think for businesses there is more support perhaps than some of those realise. I mean, we've got 10,000, 11,000 SMEs inside of Coventry and Warwickshire, but I'm adamant that we only regularly see probably about 10% of those actually make use of those public funds. So there's more to be done around publicising and encouraging businesses to come and make contact. 9 times out of 10 we can be more flexible perhaps than what it says on the website to actually meet those needs as well, and we want to do it. This is a key thing for us as well. So it's not a case that we're trying to restrict resources going out from the public sector. We actually want to put it into businesses, and we need to work with those businesses to make it work. And we'll be lobbying government for more opportunities, more programs, more investment, more innovation in this space for sure, and trying to target new funding from other areas to deliver green objectives as well.
Thanks, Andy. Natalie, is that a sense of responsibility you feel really as a sort of conduit for that kind of help?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything everybody on the panel said, particularly the messaging Andy's just said. I think there's a real sense still that businesses do want to be sustainable, but there's a narrative they see that as a cost as opposed to a cost saving. And I know today is around opportunity and being positive, but we can't steer away from the macro environment that currently small businesses are operating in. It's incredibly tough out there. The cost of doing business is at a 7-year high. We've got inflation hikes, national insurance contributions. So actually, I was at a round table this morning with NTU and a local member of parliament with about 12 businesses. And every single person around the room was just like, I have no headspace to plan at the moment. And because they don't necessarily have the headspace to plan what they need to do to grow, they're not necessarily thinking about other things and other agendas such as sustainability, net zero. So it's for, I guess, providers to be empathetic about this environment that small businesses are working within, and certainly look at tailoring some of the language. A lot of the programs are brilliant and effective, but the communications, the entry requirement, the eligibility is quite different now. So if you look at a lot of businesses pre-pandemic, the state of their business, whether that was the number of employees they had or the amount of capacity they had, it's very different now. So I think the narrative really has to be around driving this not through a government agenda and maybe, dare I say it, even an environmentally one. I think it goes back to Lance's point. It has to be around being, making a lean business, saving your business money, and the benefit of that is actually impacting the government's agenda to be net zero by 2050. So I think there's so many elements there, but I do stand by what I said in the introduction. Currently, that means there are around 306,000 businesses in the Midlands alone who have not switched on to this conversation, who don't realise that the benefit's there. So I think as partners, we can do quite a lot of good in terms of working together, sharing information, and trying to reach those businesses who maybe haven't yet started their net zero journey.
Thanks, Natalie. Lance, you employ people. How important, a lot of younger people, I'm sure, how important do you think sustainability is for younger professionals who are looking to change jobs? Can it be the difference between taking a job offer and not?
Yes, I think it can be. And these I've seen that actually when we went through a recruitment process, when the government introduced the Kickstart scheme, we had quite a few young people apply for jobs there. And it was interesting when you go through the interview process, travel, transport was key because they didn't have a car, understandably. And then also, okay, how can I get there? So I think the journey time is a critical one now because the cost of fuel and cost of living is so expensive. If people are looking at moving a career or changing careers, where they're going is massively important. Even recently, a new person started joining us and he was considering, the travel distance, the cost of that journey. So that's a massive factor. But also because sustainability is on the radar a lot more now, I think people are thinking about it. It's not just about the job they want to do, the career they want to have. Is like, okay, what does that mean for, as I say, travel and transport being a critical one, or if they're particularly passionate about the environment, what's this business culture? What's the culture of the business? What's the what's the DNA within that business, and what are they looking to do going forward? If they're a manufacturer like we are they efficient? Are they a sustainable business going forward? Because it might be down to your own morals in terms of how a business should operate. So I think with younger people, it's definitely a big factor for me, and certainly I have seen it firsthand recently.
Becky, are your tenants saying the same things to you? When you're with their office space and issues like that?
The issues are there. I would be honest and say probably about 50% are approaching us, and the other 50% come to us because we've been telling them that's how we can support them. Taking on Natalie's point about so many companies still not being aware of the importance of sustainability as a business case, certainly from the recruitment and retention of staff. People are interviewing the business now, I think, rather than the other way around. We did some research a couple of years ago and found a quarter of the Gen Z people that we interviewed said that they would only work for a company that has sustainability at its heart. I suspect that's a lot higher now. So for us, that is a big part of the agenda, and my work is to make sure that we provide showers, lockers, bike racks, bike repair kits for our tenants so that they can offer, when they recruit, all of these facilities to their staff. We're working hard to reduce the carbon emissions of the building so that they can use that for their ESG reporting. This is all really fundamental for them to be able to recruit not only staff but also clients, because the clients are looking for this as well. And it will become increasingly a compliance issue. We're already seeing that we're already seeing that in terms of the compliance requirements to report a measure on your carbon usage. I think is that a couple of years on the heat and building strategy, that's going to become a legal requirement. Companies who get in there first are obviously going to show what they can do to prospective clients and staff better. But I think people are going to be asking these questions when they come to interview, when they come to work for you as a client. What are you doing? What are your metrics, so that I can real time compare to other people who want me? Because we know that employing people is really difficult at the moment, the key skill shortage. So it really is fundamental. And it goes back to the point that I think so many people aren't aware of that. And that's why it was important for us at Spenbeck to sort of put that message out there that says, let us help you, because we can see this is coming. And we have as many people come to us specifically because we've sent that message, as people who come to us because they just like the building and get it as a benefit. And it's about educating on what's coming to help them.
Charmaine, does that ring true with you?
Yeah, I completely agree. We it just, even when I'm recruiting for new people in my team, because we've got a number of new opportunities opening up with promotions and expanding our team as well. What people like is the fact that there's a team there that people feel part of, but they like the fact that we've got sustainability central to the university's strategy. It's not hidden away in some department strategy, it's the university's strategy. So that means that you get to work on great projects that are meaningful, and it's reported upwards, so the executive get to see it and so on. So it really is important, and we're fortunate to be able to offer businesses, again, in the Nottingham area, funding support towards a graduate to help with a sustainability project. We've also got grants as well to help with some infrastructural changes that are perhaps required to cut your energy use or to make you more efficient that way. And workshops as well, some training, some awareness sessions, carbon management workshops as well. So there's lots going on, but I agree. I think it's, people want to know that they work for a values-led organisation. And I guess sustainability is almost the word that's used interchangeably with that sort of responsible business, values-driven organisation. It's what people understand. So, yeah, definitely agree with that.
Natalie, do you think small businesses realise that the importance of sustainability when it comes to recruiting?
Again, I think the ones that do, and the ones that don't. And it's that age-old problem. We've talked about the business support landscape today, and some businesses are great at accessing help from universities, help from their local authorities and the growth hubs, and some businesses just aren't. And I think some of this is around communities as well, different communities, different cultures, and what people understand by sustainability. And I go back to that narrative of challenging this perception that it will cost them money. I think a lot of the language around the journey to net zero absolutely is perfectly about the planet. It's about, the future-proofing the earth for all of us. But if you're a business owner and you're on your knees and you're being squeezed, that message might not be ringing true. So I think some of it is around adapting that language again and getting the businesses to switch on to that fact. So Lance has talked to, Lance is a great example of a business who sort of started this journey by a Google search and now is flying. And it's that sense of preaching to the converted. I would probably argue that lots of the businesses listening to us today on this call are already curious about their net zero journey. It's the ones that aren't on the call that I'm really concerned about, is how do we reach, and obviously it's through organisations such as the Federation of Small Businesses, but we don't reach, all of those other businesses that aren't. And I think it speaks to Andy's point around what we can do together collaboratively to amplify this message that actually, if you are a small business, there are multiple benefits to starting that journey, which aren't just about saving the planet, but which are about making you a leaner, more attractive business to future staff members from a public procurement perception. And actually, in terms of your marketing credentials as well, there are so many benefits to starting this journey. And I just think we just need to get that message out to more small businesses. And then the final thing I will say is we've touched on support and mechanisms. And again, I think we're finding actually some of the government interventions and particularly interventions around universities are going to have to be flexible and change because the landscape and the shape of businesses has changed over the last 2 years.
Thanks, Natalie. You kind of answered my last question, which was going to be sort of going around the panel. We've only got 2 or 3 minutes left. But Andy, if it come to you, what's your message to business owners who aren't yet on board with sustainability?
I would say my message is sustainability is much more than just green and climate change. It's also about health and well-being and behaviour and lifestyle and people's choices. And coming out of COVID, the biggest thing we've seen in business, both in the private and public sector, is there's more choice and people will make much more choice about where they work and where they play. So becoming an exemplar in sustainability and creating that right environment will allow you to attract the best talent into your business from the evidence I've seen.
And Lance?
Simple message. Don't delay. Don't put it off. It won't go away. So as we've touched on already, don't put it off. Find a partner to help. We've talked about this already. As an SME, you can't do it on your own. Don't try and do it on your own. Find the right partner. Collaborate. Industry bodies, absolutely, as Charmaine mentioned. If you trade bodies, that kind of thing, go and ask for help. If you find the right industry body or support network that's fit for your business, they'll help on the journey. Once you've started the journey, it's very rewarding. So yeah, just don't put it off. Get on and do it.
Charmaine?
I would ask a SME or any business to have a think about what's your blocker, what's preventing you from implementing some sort of sustainability, net zero, carbon reductions, whatever you want to call it. What is it? Is it lack of time? Is it lack of knowledge? Is it funding? Is it, that just seems too scary? Because depending on what that is, I think it might help you reach out for the right support. But if you want to chat, then reach out to people, and I'm happy to have a chat as well. I do think it's about collaboration. As Ian said, it's about partner working, and there is support out there. And I appreciate there's so much information. It can be information overload when you're short of time. But if you want to help signpost that, then get in touch with the people that we've already talked about. And good luck.
Thanks,
Very
Charmaine.
rewarding.
Thank you, Charmaine. And finally, Becky.
2 quick messages from me. The first one is reframe it as an investment, not a cost. and then you can appreciate the long-term benefits that we discussed today. And then the message that I share with everyone, which is progress, not perfection. Whatever size of company you are, you don't have to get it perfectly right. Just make a start, achieve those marginal gains, and collectively it will make such a difference.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll revisit this many times in the future, all of us on panels such as this. But thank you for your time today, and enjoy the weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Okay, in a second we're going to go on to our next panel session, but it's quite interesting to listen to the sustainability issue. Time and time again now, it comes up whatever subject we're talking about at the business desk, and in whatever event. It's kind of almost like the new skills. It seems to be an on-running subject, and obviously quite rightly so. We're going to introduce our next session in a second. It's called Organic Growth, the Life Sciences Sector. Sorry. This is sponsored by the University of Birmingham. I think the last 2 years has shown us the importance of the Midlands life science sector, with organisations across the region, from companies pioneering new testing to those offering vital lab services to process those tests. We've seen huge growth across the sector. And I've talked to many people over the last couple of years who have worked in the sector and who are doing absolutely vital work. And of course, life sciences has long been a specialism of the Midlands, and it has clusters and companies that are internationally innovative. But today we're going to ask what is needed to further increase its impact, and what lessons can other sectors learn from its success. So I'm just, here they are. I'd like to welcome our panelists to the stage now. Okay, hello everyone.
Hi Sam.
Afternoon.
Hi Sam.
I'm just going to go around and ask you to introduce yourselves. So on my screen, Jane, you're first, please.
Hi Sam, I'm Jane Thieker. I'm CEO of PBD Biotech. We're a business that is focused on tuberculosis diagnostics using innovative phage technology. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Gino.
Hi, and good afternoon, everybody. Gino Martini. I'm the CEO of the Precision Health Technology Accelerator, or PHTA, which is part of the exciting development of the Birmingham Health Innovation Campus that's currently being built in Birmingham right now.
Thanks, Gina. Ralph.
Hi, I'm Ralph Weir. I'm the CEO of Zyndo. We're a spin out from Loughborough University and using advanced technologies to disinfect seeds for the agri-tech industry. So a little different to the pharma industry.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. And Nick.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nick Katecha. I'm the chairman of Morningside Pharmaceuticals. We're a manufacturer of generic medicines based in Loughborough. We have about 240 licensed drugs in the UK. And I also have some other roles. So I chair the Midlands Engine Health Board, so lead on that, sit on the Midlands Engine Health Council. I'm also the chair for the CBI East Midlands and sit on the British Generics Manufacturers Association Board.
Busy man. And finally, Tom.
Afternoon, I'm Tom Burr. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer for Source Bioscience. We are a laboratory services company, mostly offering diagnostic testing for healthcare, but we also do genomics work and have a clinical trials operation as well. The company was founded by a local pathologist about 20 years ago, and we've been operating ever since.
Okay, thanks everyone. Let's kick off with our first question. We've got plenty to fit in. Ralph, I'll come to you first if that's okay. How easy do you think it is to quantify the contribution of the science sector to the Midlands economy?
Actually, I think, Jane, did you mention that you had done some research on that?
Yeah, I looked at the figures actually, Ralph, last night. So, but we might want to broaden it out a bit. So just to say that the Midlands Engine is pretty vast. It's actually contributing £222 billion in GVA to the UK economy. So that's the engine as a whole. But if you look at the a small portion of that life sciences engine, which is the medtech part of it, That's actually that takes 7% of the employment of jobs in medtech, and is basically the second largest UK employer in medtech in the UK. So that's a pretty big figure. But when I was talking to Nick just before, when we were in the green room, he was explaining that the Midlands is just so much more than just medtech, even though we're well known for medtech. So Nick, maybe I can bring you in here to talk a little bit about it.
Well, thank you very much, Jen. And you're absolutely right. At the Midlands Engine Health Board and at the Midlands Engines Observatory, we put a lot of this data together to really show how strong we are in life sciences. And maybe I can share some of the facts with the audience. But life sciences is £9.5 billion in turnover as of 2019 in the Midlands. So it's pretty significant. 33,000 employees in 1,200 life sciences businesses. We have 7 schools of medicines here in the Midlands, and of course 20 major universities. You know what? 20% of all of the medical students in the UK come out of the Midlands, so that's pretty significant. 80 private hospitals, 130 NHS hospitals, and 2 of the largest 3 trusts in the UK are based here in the Midlands. Then you've got, of course, the life science opportunity zones. We have 2 of those, and 21 science and innovation parks in the Midlands. So there is a heck of a lot going on all around life sciences, whether it be pharmaceuticals, medtech, diagnostics, manufacturing, and that's happening all here in the Midlands.
Thanks, Nick. Gino, can I bring you in on this? How important do you see the sector for the region and for the UK?
Well, it's really important, isn't it? I mean, I'm an ex-industrial pharmacist. I used to work for large pharma and big pharma. And we know how important it is for job creation. And we need to understand as well, if you want to tackle health inequalities, you need to create high-value jobs, skilled jobs. So, for example, we're developing inside the Innovation Campus in Birmingham with Bruntwood SciTech. And the idea is that it'll be a 10-acre site, but we're going to create over 10,000 jobs, create a GVA of nearly 500 million. And that's a fantastic impetus, not just for the local region, but for the region, the Midlands, and for obviously for the national economy as well. We need to understand that most of these small businesses are the lifeblood of the UK economy, and that's a really important point. And these skilled jobs are really important. I'm also very passionate about health inequality. Good jobs like this can really help people, thrive and with careers and high value jobs. So really important. Point to make. Also very important is the clinical network that we have across the whole Midlands as well. Those hospitals are our engines. We can clinically test our products, be it diagnostics, be it medicines, in a clinically diverse patient population as well. It's really important.
I think, that's a really interesting aspect of the scale out factor from people who are working directly in life sciences and the people who are supporting around those businesses. So as an example of that, we are building machines and equipment. So we have a lot of specialists in plant pathology and so forth, but we're also working with a lot of local manufacturers to help us build the machines, the electronics guys, the machine shops. So sort of the traditional businesses of the Midlands, the things that people perhaps associate the Midlands with. The life sciences are actually really supporting those guys also and ensuring the overall success of the region.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I know of a case, and this is not from the Midlands, but it's from the southeast, of a car manufacturing facility that was repurposed to create machines that could look at genotypes for seed QC. And that's a beautiful example of the way that the industry is being repurposed for life sciences applications and pharmaceutical applications and manufacturing applications. So really contributing to that life sciences engine.
Yeah.
Tom, sorry, Ralph.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the nice thing about the diversity of the industries in the area is exactly that. It not only provides inspiration for new products and services, but as was just mentioned, the opportunity to then test these same products and services in the real world situations, which is invaluable. And we certainly don't have any shortage of the skills and expertise that we need right here on our doorstep.
And Tom, your business must have had to scale quite rapidly over the last 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a very interesting time for us personally, because of course a lot of our work was coming from the NHS, work that really stopped almost entirely during the pandemic as hospitals were emptied of what was considered to be non-essential surgeries. We rapidly refocused our resources towards supporting the UK government in their COVID screening program. And, one of the benefits of being in the area is we could very easily tap into local expertise in infectious diseases to build entirely from scratch a whole new infectious disease division, and provide those kind of testing services for the government, but then subsequently to UK public and travellers as well. So yeah, we did have a very large expansion over that period. It's been a busy time for a lot of people.
Yeah,
that's one thing I was going to pick up on actually, Tom, is the stability of the clinical trial availability in the area. So you've got a very large patient population in the Midlands, but you've also got quite an ethnically diverse population, which can be quite interesting, especially if you're, with our example, we're interested in TB diagnostics, and therefore we need that immigrant population to be there and present, because that's predominantly where the TB reservoir is coming from. So in order to do some of our clinical trials, we've been able to look at this contact tracing, where we get resurgence of TB in the area, and being able to utilise that diverse ethnic background there is absolutely fantastic if you're trying to conduct clinical trials of these nature.
And I think, Jane, that's an excellent point, because that's where we really excelled at during COVID. The clinical trials capability that we have here in the Midlands is phenomenal. As you say, the diverse population, different cultures. And also, it wasn't just about the clinical trials around the vaccine. It was all the testing and the trials that were done around the uptake of vaccines with the BAME population that was done here. The universities working with universities in Oxford and other places to actually develop the vaccine. All of that was being done here. So really important.
I think the point to make, Jane and Nick as well, is that the patient population is stable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you compare it to London, it's about 8 million. The Midlands across is well over 6 million, but it's stable and very well characterised. So you've actually got that population. You used the word reservoir, but actually that stability is really important, because patient recruitment is going to be key. If you've got a proper stable patient recruitment platform, then you've got no clinical trial. So that's a distinction from London, I feel.
And just to add, I think we've been recognised for that through the Midlands Engine Health Board. We've been in conversations with the Vaccine Task Force, which is run through BAYS and DHSC. And I think everyone realised that we were caught with our pants down when this pandemic came. We weren't ready. And what they're now talking about is how do we ready for the next pandemic, and what should we be having. And we're centralising the Midlands, saying we can do all of that here in the Midlands, from the development work for a vaccine to the manufacturing, the R&D, the clinical trials. And then, of course, we're 4 hours from most parts of the UK where we can distribute the vaccine as well. So it's great that people have noticed that work we did do around COVID.
I wish I could be so calm when people say the next pandemic, but there's Nick was. Well, how did your business change during the pandemic?
We were actually founded almost at the beginning of the pandemic. So the transition through the pandemic was interesting, to say the least. And I think it reflects a lot on some of the strengths of the UK, in fact, in the way it came together. We founded the business with a grant from Innovate UK. That helped us enormously, as you can imagine, and with a lot of support from the sort of the local universities. And I think that really, things could have gone quite differently had it not been for the support that was available around the company through Innovate UK in particular, and the universities, where we had this amazing technology, but suddenly the market disappeared. A lot of our market is in Europe, in the Netherlands. Couldn't get there for love or money. Couldn't go to all the customers that we had, or prospects we'd warmed up. It really was a difficult time. And for us, Innovate UK, the universities, the support of various other organizations around who could help us, when we were looking for a pathologist or a particular biologist with particular experience, that was phenomenally useful. But I think there are probably other people, I'm looking at Tom in particular, who perhaps had a different experience of the pandemic in terms of how your business transitioned through it.
Jane, what about your business? You took a takeover last year, was it, Jane? I remember doing the story.
No, I actually took over in January, so PVD.
Okay.
But what I know is we had, I think, one member of staff was put on furlough, but because our business is very focused on TB and that can be applied to cattle and humans, we were focusing our efforts very much on the cattle side. There was less risk, so we could by and large and continue as normal. But we have taken a more recent pivot towards the human side now with COVID, hopefully more behind us than it was a year or two ago. And that's meant that we've been able to do some really innovative clinical trials with the team at Leicester University and collaborating with Pranab Halder there, really looking at, first of all, contact tracing for TB and whether our test adds value in that particular situation, but also looking at the sensitivity and specificity of our clinical test versus the other tests that are out there on the market, and demonstrating that we can add value there in terms of the sensitivity and specificity of our test. So that's been something that we've been able to undertake really, in the last sort of year or so, and that exciting research is coming out and being published and taken over to ECCMID, which is the sort of infectious diseases conference in Portugal in April. So very excited about that. So for us, it didn't make a huge amount of difference because cows and humans still get sick, and we were able to use our diagnostics against those two particular areas.
Thanks, Jane. Nick, you always seem busy because I see you everywhere, but with the last 2 years flat out for you?
Yeah, I mean, we were deemed key workers because we supply medicines. So, we were working all the way through. But again, we had a lot of changes because we had to, of course, separate people. So almost 50% of our workforce went home. We almost overnight, when COVID started, we had to buy 150 laptops because we weren't ready for things like that. And of course, at that time, you couldn't get the laptops. And then when people were working home, everyone had different broadband speeds. So when they were trying to download documents, and medicine manufacturing, what we call batch manufacturing records, are very big documents. They can be 500 pages sometimes. They couldn't download them. So we had a lot of change going on. And in the meantime, we were still trying to get the product out the door and supply the NHS. But one thing I can say is that we did things that would normally take us 3 years, and we did them in 6 months. So that's the positive from it, that we are now electronic with an electronic quality management system and all those things, whereas previously would have been signing paper documents.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting period for a lot of companies. The idea of working remotely, what it did for us was really accelerate the use of digital technologies in a similar way, particularly focusing on digital pathology now, which has been bubbling away in the background for a long time. And what happened for us is it really accelerated that program, encouraged more and more uptake of that sort of technology, and in fact led to us then acquiring another pathology business that also had digital capability, making us probably the biggest provider in the country now of pathology diagnostics and certainly digital. And I think there will be a lot more to come where people realize that, the the Midlands is great geographically. We may have touched on that a bit. It's very convenient for moving all kinds of materials around in all kinds of industries. And I think increasingly we're going to be using digital technologies to reduce some of that. Hopefully it will reduce carbon footprints and things like that as well. So we had a similar experience of that acceleration, which was really useful.
The sustainability thing has been something that's come up throughout the day at Invest Midlands, and it's so important now. You touched on it, Nick touched on the sort of cluster and the strength of the cluster earlier, but do you know, how far do you think the Midlands has to go until it can be truly known as a global hub in the sector, or indeed, do you think it's there already?
Well, I think it's there already. I mean, the issue, and we discussed this in the green room, is that, you know, people kind of label the region as being automotive and kind of ignores the rich heritage. You know, you've got Nottingham, you've got Birmingham, you know, Aston, Coventry. I mean, the first ever treatment for FDA approved treatment for brain cancer came from Aston University, for example. You know, first ever pacemaker from Birmingham. And so they kind of forget that, really. I mean, I want to just go back to that previous question about the pandemic and what actually happened, because I think some really amazing things did happen, like the call to arms to develop PPE from scratch. You know, as Nick said, we were all caught out, and you know, the Midlands really worked really well together to try and drive the creation of PPE. I think it's really important. We can't forget that. And a colleague of mine, Professor Liam Grove, was heavily involved in that. You know, prior to this, I was the chief scientist for all pharmaceutical science, and I was vaccinating loads of people. I was also having to inform all these healthcare practitioners, you know, what's the best thing to do. And of course, Professor Paul Moss was appointed the UK leader of the coronavirus immunology consortium, and he led that on behalf of the UK. And the papers he was releasing was advising people like me what I could advise my fellow pharmacists. We had Alex Richter developing diagnostic test and binding site, and Alan McAnally, you know, developing the work for the Lighthouse work in Milton Keynes. It was a fantastic call to arms. So most of my colleagues will actually stop your research and actually apply your knowledge and help with PPE, diagnostic testing, developing diagnostics, informing healthcare practitioners what was going on with respect to immunology. And I think that's something we can't forget, because, you know, it was there and we need to capture it and make sure that's sustainable going forward. Yeah. Because unfortunately, this pandemic may well resurrect itself in the next couple of years, and we need to be far better prepared.
Yeah, and we certainly saw a good deal of collaboration between organisations and businesses, sharing knowledge really openly, even sharing materials where people were finding it difficult to get hold of things, you know, right down to reagents. You know, there was a real community spirit, which I hope continues.
For sure. I mean, things like plasticware, centrifuges, they were all in very short supply, and it just really, those connections and those networks really came into their own at that point.
I think if I can add on to the collaboration piece, because I think that is a key theme that we can really work together on. And I always give the example about the COVID vaccine. If you think a vaccine would normally take you 15 years, 20 years to develop, we did it in 9 months. And the reason we could do that is we had an excellent university in Oxford. We had a great pharmaceutical business in AstraZeneca, an incredible regulator with the MHRA who got involved right from the start to do the trials and things like that, and then significant funding from the government. And that's what allowed it to happen. Now we can carry on that model with our universities, private sector, government, NHS trusts working together, and that can only be good.
Guys, that sounds good. We've talked about the established businesses. Let's talk about the next generation, really. Is there enough incubation space in the region for growing companies? Ralph?
I think it's a mixed bag. There's obviously some new space coming along. It is probably the most difficult challenge for a startup. It's perhaps a surprise, but of course, if you look at commercial property, it will be the wrong thing. You'll have to invest very heavily in it, and you're probably going to have to sign up to a long lease, which as an early stage startup, you can't do. So that's quite difficult. that very much narrows your choices down to things like the academic innovation centres. And I think often these are a fantastic asset, but they're jacks of all trades. They've probably been built to a budget, and that's sometimes a bit challenging. You know, we've got so many different things that a university innovation centre has to cope with. So perhaps it has to cope with a full-on engineering workshop, a team developing websites, people doing pharmaceuticals. You know, for us ourselves within the building that we're in, we have that engineering workshop, we have a full-on biology lab, and we have separate office space. And the building is being asked to do all of these things. And that makes for quite a high spec building to be able to adapt and to cope with these things. And perhaps that's the challenge, is finding that space which is flexible, that you can expand, but also not have to commit to for the very long term, and then also has the types of services that you need or would like to have access to. And I'm not particularly thinking of very high spec equipment. Sometimes I'm just thinking about putting drains in, so you can put a sink in. You know, really, it can be quite basic stuff that can trip you up. Gino, I think you've got some experience, haven't you?
Well, we're doing it now. We're building something now. I mean, working very well with Bruntwood SciTech, and Bruntwood SciTech, as you know, Manchester property developer, working actually at JV with Legal and General, well known in Manchester, Alderley Park. They've just bought a site in Cambridge, but they're actually developing or co-developing with us the Birmingham Health Innovation Campus. And what we wanted to do is to solve a couple of issues. First of all, it's 10 acres, so it's one of the largest science parks being built next to a large hospital university in the UK. But we wanted to be adaptable. So we're creating huge collaborative space that's flexible. I mean, a little about you. One minute you say there's not enough wet labs, not enough dry labs. Well, we're going to give you wet labs, dry labs, GMP areas, office space, virtual tenancies. We're trying to provide a very adaptable ecosystem to allow startups to actually be able to grow in this environment. So we've got very large labs, small labs. We're just trying to make it really adaptable. I think the issue is we need to understand innovation occurs when people meet. We can have hybrid events, okay, like this, but it's those sidebar conversations where you get that kind of synergistic, aha moments. When Rolls met Mr. Royce in Midland Hotel in Manchester, that's what actually happened. People met each other. And so I want to create an ecosystem where people can meet and collaborate. Hybrids are great, but we need to get people to get back and understand we can collaborate by meeting each other and sparking off ideas. So it's a really exciting opportunity that's happening. But again, look at what's happening in East Midlands. BioCity have actually shown what can be done. And what we're doing with BHIC is something, a really, really fantastic opportunity. And over the next 18 months, you can see more and more about what we're trying to do.
So I think that's a really good point, actually, Gino. Incubation space is not like office space. Office space, is a very different proposition, but high quality incubation space it's quite specialist, and working with partners, I guess, like Bruntwood SciTech, who've got that experience and have done it already at Alderley Park and other places. That really helps to have confidence in that incubation space being right for you and being bespoke for your company. So I think you're absolutely bang on there. I think the BHIC is going to be absolutely fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to having a look round when you've got it all completed.
You're more than welcome, Jane.
I would definitely agree. I think the BHIC is a really important initiative and is going to really do big things for the West Midlands. But I also wanted to talk about BioCity a little bit in the East Midlands, because I've been involved with them for quite some time. And this is an excellent model because, of course, it's an incubator where you can have small businesses it being across it's 5 different sites around the UK, and they can then work together. But then there's shared facilities as well, because you may have some technology, but you might need other equipment and things like that. And instead of going and buying it, if you can share it, that really does help. In the same way, then what they'll do is they'll build a model where you may need a lawyer in there because you want to do patents. You may need accountants to do your business case. Then the whole BioCity model is also about not just providing the space. They will help you grow your business from a scientific project to a business case, and then allow it to grow, and also help towards funding. So an incubator is really important to help the scientists or the technologists to really go and then create a product or a service that they can commercialize. And having that, what the CBI calls an economic cluster of all these different individuals working together and learning from each other and sharing resources is a very powerful tool.
Yeah, having been through that situation previously, so through the BioCity incubator process, I can tell you, each company, you say it takes a village to raise a child. It's just the same with a company. You need that ecosystem around it to create a successful company. And the BioCity model is absolutely fantastic at doing that. Really, really great. It's a great model.
Yeah,
I brought several companies up through innovation centres, and looking back on it, the best experiences, things like whether you've got a wet lab or not, that's a niggle. Whereas, well, it isn't actually. It's a niggle until we've resolved it. But the best experiences have been where there's been some good collaborative, not so much collaborative space, it's just social space. It's around the kitchen. It's when you're sitting in the kitchen and somebody starts chatting about electronics and you go, hold on, we need some electronics done, or we need some advice with accountancy, or how did you do that? Do you know a good insurance broker? And those sorts of conversations are absolutely worth their weight in gold. So I think there's a lot can be done in doing it really nicely. And I think Nick's bang on with BioCity. It works well there.
Thanks, Ralph. Gino.
Yeah, and just to add to what Nick was saying, but what we're trying to do with phase one of BHIC, which is called the PHTA, which I'm going to be leading on, it's the word accessibility. What we're trying to do, we're going to have 3 floors of phase one, and our academics, our clinicians will be part of those 3 floors. And so we will have industry working cheek by jowl with our key opinion leaders. And one thing we need to understand, in the last 20 years, all the latest innovative medicines, right, that have been launched in Europe actually had key opinion leaders looking after them from the UK. That network is not disappeared. It's still there. It's in our universities. It's our clinicians, our academics. We made a very conscious decision that 3 floors, that 6th floor building, phase one, we're not going to just hire all out to external companies. We will put our people, our experts into those floors strategically, so to actually maximize the collaboration and connectivity. I see the building phase one to be a conduit. It's a gateway to accessing people in Birmingham Health Partners, for example, or in the university or across the region completely. And that's been purposely done to really kind of coalesce, I suppose, cluster people literally physically together in this one building. And so that's really important. Access to our key opinion leaders, our clinical networks, is going to be a vital ingredient for success for me.
Sorry, Sam, can I just come in again? I think that's an incredible point. The other thing you might want to think about, Gino, as well, is that when you have those tenants, is make sure you create a talent pool of mentors, people from academia, people from private sector, who can come in and talk about the real business world to the scientists who can then take it out there, because that's really powerful as well to help them through that journey.
Yeah, and we've also purposely designed in there a training centre where we can actually help to train and provide skills and training in the local region. Because like I said before, those jobs are really valuable. They're going to help bridge this health inequality gap. And so by doing that, we need to actually upskill and train people as well. And I've actually doubled the size purposely to make sure we have a training facility so we can actually help people train, upskill accordingly. And the bit as well we're missing, of course, is patients. They need to be part of this. The community has to be part of this venture. And I'm very keen to do that as well.
And I think that sort of support does, I think, increase people's confidence that they can, make their dreams work as well. And it's a real springboard when they've built that confidence and feel a bit more independent. It's that springboard to then go off and grow their business. And I think we've seen a number of really good examples of that in recent years.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to put you a bit on the spot, and you're not allowed to mention your own company at all. But who or what do you think is doing the best work in the sector in the Midlands at the moment? Who should we start with? Jane.
Okay, so I think there's 2 key players. I think number one, government. Government are putting a lot of money into R&D. And we know that every pound that's put into R&D comes back in terms of equity investment into new businesses in times 2. So basically, the more government puts in, the more equity investment you get in a region, which is always a good thing. So I think government are doing a fantastic job there. And I think the other thing that's really important, so I think there's some great investors in the sector. I'm going to call out Mercia because it's in the name. They're just a fantastic investor in this region, and they've invested in our company. So I'm going to give them an out and out plug here. So yeah, those are the two.
Thanks, Jane. Gino.
Oh wow, okay. Well, I mean, obviously we've talked about BioCity in the East Midlands, but I also want to shout out to Bruntwood SciTech, because actually they're not only doing BHIC, they've also just done the work in Aston University as well, the innovation hub there. And so that, I mean, without these guys actually providing these collaborative spaces, it's going to be really difficult. I also give a shout out to Birmingham Health Partners. It's a huge trust, and without the hospitals working in a coordinated way, it makes my job a lot more difficult. So it's a bit more partisan, but I feel, I can see the immediate impact of what these guys are trying to do. Bruntwood SciTech with Aston, Birmingham, and Birmingham Health Partners allowing us to get the access. And, we can mention a whole variety of companies like the Binding Site, how do you, and Onicus, but, they've all done extremely well. They've grown from nowhere, expanded, and become success stories. So I think too many to mention, I suppose, really. But this BHP bit, Bruntwood bit, I think is important. Complements what we're doing in BioCity.
Thanks. Tom?
Yeah, I think the same. I mean, the Medilink have their awards, of course, every year, and have more companies than they can give prizes to. Certainly some of those ones that were just mentioned, like Nonicus, Binding Site, they've all done really well. Signature is another company that have grown a lot in the last couple of years, and have been, again, had a lot of interaction with BioCity and support from the region. So there's some names that stand out, definitely.
Thanks, Tom. Nick?
I think Jane made the point about government, and I think that is really important. The life sciences sector is in the limelight at the moment. There's already a commitment to £20 billion for this sector up to the end of this Parliament. R&D tax credits are being changed and hopefully made a bit more friendlier so that we can get that. That was in the spring statement a couple of days ago, as well as lots of investment coming in from foreign markets as well into this sector. So this is our opportunity in life sciences. We can really make a difference. So I think that's a big game changer for us in the Midlands and the UK. But I think some of the companies, I put a list together with what I thought, and BHIC was one of them. Signature is another one doing brilliant work in Nottingham around Parkinson's disease. But I also wanted to give a shout out to a couple of companies, one called SureScreen. So if you remember when COVID started, there was no diagnostics, and they were one of the leaders in this area. And I think the real amazing thing what they did was how they scaled it up, and so quickly, again, with government funding and support and employing people. But it was a great story. And another one, as I'm in the pharmaceutical business and manufacturing medicines, the distributors, and there's one we have called McKesson's, Coventry based in the UK, which basically supplied every hospital pharmacy throughout COVID with vaccines and got the medicines in there. And that's quite a tricky job because it's got to be temperature controlled, secure, all of these different things. And they did a brilliant job as well, and do in supplying medicines to make sure that we always get those.
Thanks. Ralph, I hope people have left you with some companies to mention.
That's all the last, isn't it? So picking up a little bit on what Jane and Nick were just saying, my vote would go towards an Innovate UK programme called iCure, which is about identifying ideas that are in the universities and testing them against the market, and either recommending they go back into university for continuing research or spinning them out as a separate company. And I think that it's a really exciting program because they're identifying so many different things. It's not just about life sciences. I've seen several things coming out of that which are, almost for construction or for aerospace, but they're identifying these fascinating pieces of research that have got so much potential. It's based out of, or the Midlands sector of it is based out of Warwick, and they just do brilliant work in taking these young people. They talk about early career researchers, guys who are maybe a research associate or something like that, guys in the loosest sense of the term, and giving them the support that they need, giving them the confidence to move on and do something with what's probably their life's research at that point. Zindu itself is actually a graduate from that program, and the quality of the other businesses coming out it's just phenomenal. It's a real testament to the strength of the UK universities, and now having a government program that helps feed part of that pipeline, or maybe I should say another government program that helps feed that pipeline. So they get my vote.
Thanks, Ralph. Time's nearly beaten us, but I'm going to give Gino the last word if possible. Gino, we've talked through, the various positives about the industry, but what can other industries or other sectors learn from the success of the life sciences sector in the Midlands, do you think?
Well, I think it's our reactivity. I mean, we talked about a colleague of mine put a nasal spray for COVID in less than about 9 months, actually, and it's actually now been launched in the Far East. We don't want to go back to where we were. I think, we've learned that we can do things smart, quickly, and keeping high quality. And I think we've shown that when there's a collective will, we could do an awful lot. And I think that's the message I'd like to leave it on, though. Let's not go back to it. We've always done this way. Let's adopt and adapt what we've seen, the success stories, and work in a collective way. I'm very collegiate, and anybody wants to work with us, my door is always open. I think cooperation is really important. I think the West Midlands and the East Midlands can work really well together across the whole region.
Thanks, Gino. That was genuinely fascinating, and thank you all for your time on a sunny Friday afternoon. You can all go and sit in your gardens now, wherever you are. But thank you ever so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay, many thanks to all our panelists on the blue stage today. Please do stay online and head over to the pink stage next for our next sessions, which are all about international trade. Thank you.